Limerence is the gateway to healing core wounds. Now, if you don't know what limerence is, you can go take a look at the videos by the Crappy Childhood Fairy on limerence. But in short, it's when you have feelings for another person, which may include obsession, particularly romantic obsession, and your feelings are not returned. It may be an impossible situation where it's not practical or realistic to date this person. In the worst case scenario, this limerence that you experience can prevent you from having a healthy relationship, but in other cases, it doesn't necessarily need to be seen as a bad thing. Getting really upset about it and resisting the process can make it more difficult than it needs to be or inflate the severity of the situation. And what I mean by that is if you start to go into a pattern of shame or guilt, it can make the situation worse for you rather than bringing light and love into it. I'm going to reference some videos on core wounds of different attachment styles, and I will link those videos in the description. For attachment styles, we have the anxious style as well as the avoidant style. So in the videos below, they are described as anxious attachment. And then we have the dismissive avoidant, which from what I can see, these attachment styles can arise normally in our lives just through our normal day-to-day living and all the challenges that come up with that. We don't necessarily have to have a very traumatic childhood to experience these attachment styles, although there can be some elements that are missing. The fearful avoidant seems to be a combination of both the avoidant and anxious attachment style. And it seems that the fearful avoidant style tends to have this precursor of trauma in their life. For the anxious attachment style, they will be charismatic and warm and connect with others to get their needs met, but will often overcompensate, overgive, overachieve. The dismissive avoidant reacts to not being able to attune with a primary caregiver and receive that level of safety by having coldness or withdrawing. They will be dismissive and tune out of conversations. And they can come across as inconsiderate, but not being fully aware of it. They are automatically avoiding that bid for connection so they don't have to feel that childhood wound being triggered where they are not being able to attune with the primary caregiver. So the response is difficulty attuning to other people's needs, or that part of them is shut off. The fearful avoidant just has so many triggers because they're hyper attuned to other people's needs, sometimes from being parentified as a child, and there was just so much pressure to meet other people's needs to ensure their own safety that they notice when slight things are off with people's expressions and behavior and make a story about it, get triggered and shut down. So they want connection but also avoid it. So there's this push-pull dynamic that we see that is present with the children of narcissistic family dynamics. So what does limerence have to do with these attachment styles? Well, when you experience limerence, what that is doing is guiding you to have your core wounds triggered so that you can heal them. So with the dismissive avoidant attachment style, we see core wounds of I will be abandoned, or I am abandoned. I am unsafe. I am bad or defective. I am alone, and I cope with that by saying, I like being alone. I am misunderstood. I am stupid. The fearful avoidant attachment style seems to have a lot of the same core wounds, but added on to there, I am not good enough, I am not worthy, I am trapped, helpless, powerless, out of control, I am unsafe. And there can be more secondary ones like I am excluded, I am disliked. Of course, a lot of these seem to be consistent with just the human experience, learning how to navigate our lives. We have these patterns that help protect us that were formed when we couldn't fully understand and process the situations that were happening around us, and we just did our best to survive. What I find really interesting about these core wounds is the feelings that they elicit when they're triggered. There can be anger, frustration, resentment, fear, panic, shame, guilt, irritation, and agitation. So with limerence, you have this fantasy of this other person, and it's really a fantasy that this person will not trigger those core wounds. What that really means is that there is this unrealistic hope that you will gain that attunement and connection that you desire without any of these core wounds being triggered. Now that's idealistic because that's not possible. You have to go through the healing of core wounds in order to get to that healthy relationship, to become a full, whole, and healed person. So you have this fantasy and you want to confess your feelings. Now what happens when either you avoid confessing your feelings because you don't want to shatter the fantasy, or you confess the feelings and they reject you, and what comes up? Anger, fear, panic, shame, irritation, agitation, and then eventually resentment and bitterness, maybe. Now, what are these? These are all the emotions that are triggered when your core wounds are poked and prodded and brought to the surface. Oh boy, and now you're experiencing, I am so stupid for thinking that they would feel the same way about me, when that's not true. That's a core wound. I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy. That's not true. That's a core wound. I am bad, I am defective. I am betrayed, I am abandoned. Whether conscious or unconscious, these themes will come up and be present within the mind, and you will experience them as if they are real. It's not real, it's a core wound that's being activated and triggered. I love that your core wounds are being activated and triggered because now they're at the surface, now you can heal them. It's a good thing. Let yourself feel all those emotions. Let yourself experience that and know that that's not true. You don't have to feel threatened by it. Any romantic obsession that you feel, this is the carrot. This is the incentive that is leading you to heal these core emotional wounds. So yes, all the emotions that you experience when your core wounds are triggered, go ahead and experience them. But do not layer shame and guilt on top of that. You're not bad for experiencing that, for feeling that. Release expectation of romantic reciprocation and realize that you are being blessed. When we are stuck in not being able to move past experiencing those core wounds, we can never fully experience the person as they are. It prevents us from attuning to another person. It prevents us from that deep connection because we are so immersed in our own pain. Once you de-escalate the threat of feeling that pain triggered by core wounds, you are finally present to be able to experience another person as they are, to experience yourself as you are without that distortion. So congratulations, you are one step closer to a beautiful, incredible, amazing life where you are ready to step into all the romantic, financial, life-fulfilling and enriching opportunities that you might have avoided because they might have triggered any of these core wounds. You are closer to your freedom, to living your full potential. Everything is working out perfectly for you. So to summarize, as long as you're experiencing these core wounds, you are not perceiving yourself or the other clearly. So set aside this romantic expectation for now while you process all the feelings that come up for you, and then trust that when you're able to see more clearly that maybe this person is a good fit for you, maybe they're not, and you will have that clarity when the time comes. Rejection can be a really good thing because it can give you the space to heal whatever needs to be healed, to process core wounds, and then help you to see really clearly. Nothing about this has to be a negative reflection on who you are as a person, but simply a part of your growth. And your growth is a beautiful, wonderful thing. So shift your perspective and start to see this in more of a positive light. Start to see how this is all working out for you and helping you create the life that you really want.